The way a study abroad works could be integrated or could be copied for this type of new study abroad based on vocational training. Okay, so why is this a new market and why are there really new opportunity right now? It's nothing new in itself, but the situation has dramatically changed. I mean, it's quite simple. You know, these demographics are ruthless. I mean, there's nothing you can change about it. And several forecasts say that in 2030, so in 7 years, there will be something between 5.8 million and 7.7 million workforce will be missing in Germany. And we're talking about qualified labor, not about unqualified labor. Of course, there are different scenarios, could be worse or better, but still it doesn't matter if it's 5.8 or 7.7 million. Okay, so sure, the key facts here are the demographic reasons. There is a lack of skilled professionals, that's quite clear. Then of course, politicians have realized this, and especially economy and companies do realize this, so there have been 2 waves of liberalization of labor immigration laws, and the biggest shortages are in medicine and care, which is a special field I'm not going to talk about because this has been established for a long time and there are many programs going on here. And basically there are 2 paths, of course, to alleviate this shortage of qualified labor. Either you go concentrate on specialists, people who have already been working, or you concentrate on trainees, or what used to be called apprentices, but I think it's the wrong word, or it evokes the wrong kind of jobs. And so far most companies are focusing on getting qualified labor, people who have already work experience and so on. But these people are much harder to get, they need a very long time to integrate, and very often they move away. And I think there's a new opportunity. Generally speaking, what is required in these jobs is a level of competence in German between B1 and C1. Sure, there are some jobs which can be in English only, but I'm not talking about these. I'm talking about the big number of jobs which always require good knowledge and good command of German. Okay, so and on this graphic you can see that already a very big, the red part, these are already immigrants in Germany, and you see this, of course, this is not a pyramid, the age pyramid, it's an inverted pyramid right now, and this is going to get worse, and Germany is becoming, or is becoming a quite diverse society. Okay, so the situation is not new for most of you. You've heard about this. It's the same in most industrialized countries. Germany has a certain disadvantage compared to English-speaking countries, which sure is the language most taught, but also because sometimes Germany used and still is used to be quite bureaucratic. But still, I think there's one trump card, and which is this system which is called duale Ausbildung. That is, you have a paid vocational education where trainees are employed by a company but learn roughly 50% of their time, then pass exams which are nationally recognized. And these jobs, it's a wide span. It can be from fairly simple jobs, but to very high class jobs and traineeships, which in other countries are definitely done at a university first. And anyway, once you finish this 3-year programs, you can anyway go on to study later at the university under certain conditions, depends on your initial qualification, of course. So, just to give you an impression what is which jobs have the biggest shortage, well, nursing staff, that's quite well known, won't talk about it, but jobs, these are the first 10 of 65 job profiles with a very high deficit of qualified applicants. So you see this is in engineering, construction, medical assistant, things like that, but also things like occupational refrigeration technology, and right now everything that has to do with alternative sources of energy, of course, is very, very in demand. Okay, so I'll just give you an example what this type of qualification might be, how they are defining themselves. There are about, I don't know, 200 or 250 or even more defined jobs for this. So, for example, a specialist for warehouse logistics, that's a very common traineeship. It's sort of, many companies offer it, and you see it is quite demanding in its program, and this program it's guaranteed by the state that people who do these traineeships will do the whole program, will have the corresponding exams, and at the end will have their national examination. Or regionally, it's done regionally, but still it's nationally recognized. So, and you see they ask for a high, this is a specific profile, but it's kind of example. It could be more or less the same or very similar. You find hundreds of these type of profiles. So you see that it's quite demanding. And the interesting thing is that these trainees earn a salary of about 1,000 euros the first year already. 1,000 euros, you have to deduce a little bit for some, makes about 945 or something net, which is, by the way, exactly the sum you would have to pay on a block bank account in Germany. And some are much higher. For example, nurses would start at 1,300. There are some which are below, but we're not aiming for these. We're aiming for the higher tier of these traineeships. And even in this logistics, warehouse logistics specialist, it's a kind of job guarantee. If you finish your traineeship, and of course if you're not completely personally you're okay, and you work and you come regularly to work, your job is guaranteed afterwards. This used to be different many years ago, because sometimes trainees were cheap labor, but now it's a way for the companies to secure their skilled labor force. So people can be assured of getting a job offer from the company where they did their traineeship, but of course they can also go somewhere else where maybe they like it better or they get more money or whatever. So these are just some general indications, but I want to make the point here that it's something that's really interesting and attractive for many people, because you all know how expensive studying abroad can be, especially at a university, even if there are no fees like in most public universities in Germany. Still, you have to subsist and live on something. Okay, so why is this a new and developing study abroad market? Because, well, this shortage is increasing, so the need is getting bigger and bigger. And young foreigners are on average more motivated and better qualified than traineeship candidates in Germany, because there are very few young people in Germany, so they can choose, and of course very often white-collar jobs have a better image for them. And so this is, I've spoken to many people abroad. You probably know it's a dream for them to come to Europe and to make their fortune and to earn a decent living. And this is possible here, and it's they don't have to study for 4 or 5 years and then start looking for a job. For me, one of the main points is that young foreigners, and this is something we saw in the programs we were employed in, which were the public programs, young foreigners are much easier to integrate. They don't have families, they're younger, they learn the language more easily. They can live on little money. They are, it's like a student is different from someone 30 years plus with a family, and with a family at once comes all the problems. How do they integrate school, and so on and so on. So this is much easier, and I think probably has a much higher success rate. And as far as what I take from many talks with German companies is that they're beginning to realize they need a long-term strategy. It doesn't help to have a stopgap measures. It's a long-term strategy. If you're a medium-sized company, you have, let's say, something like 10 or 15 trainees each year, and this will ensure that you have a well-qualified workforce that knows exactly what you do at your company and how you function, and you have known them and you know how to work with them. And of course, vocational education, as I said already, is self-financed after an initial investment in language, in visa fees, in translations, and things like that, like in studying abroad in general. Okay, so the demand for trainees is getting higher and higher, much more higher than it ever was. And what I also remarked when I talked to recruitment responsible persons in companies, the acceptance of foreign traineeship applicants is rising. They do receive more and more applications, often individual ones, but they are difficult to administer for them. But still, they do not see these as a problem anymore because they know they can get, at least some of them know they can get very good candidates. And I've also noticed the kind of employer tendency to pay for the language course, travel costs, and so on. This is something which in the nursing department is already done. You know, company or big hospital groups, they invest up to, I've made more or less, I've reckoned more or less up to 15,000 euros for the language course. They pay kind of scholarship, they pay the travel costs just to attract nurses to Germany. And of course, as the demand gets higher and the need gets much more intensive, I think companies will also pay more for good trainees and try to attract very good, motivated and clever trainees. So the visa procedures will take a longer time, I think, but still there are more successful visa procedures as far as I can see for trainees. The law is there, but you know, the application very often takes a longer time, and individual embassies or consulates might interpret them in a strange way. But anyway, there are so many new possible potential clients who would not be able to pay for studies abroad, even without study fees, but who in this way could make it possible for their son or daughters to do a traineeship in Germany, by the way also in Austria or in Switzerland, because the system is very well established in the 3 German-speaking countries. Okay, so of course there are some stumbling blocks. It's not that easy, otherwise it would already be up and running. There are more cases, but it's still a trickle in my opinion. So there's some, what I call the gold standard for visa. That's more or less the surest way to get a visa for a traineeship in Germany. The basic is you have to have university access in your home country. You see they aim at qualified people. You must not be too old, maximum of 26 years when you start your traineeship in Germany. You need a recognized B1 level of German. You have to have a signed traineeship contract and a monthly salary of at least 1,000 euros. Otherwise, you would need a blocked bank account. So with this, it's fairly sure you're fairly assured to get your visa, and of course work permit and everything else. But sure, visa rejection, you all have experienced this, I think. Sure, people might fail at the intermediate exam, at the final exam, they might have integration problems. And of course, for the companies who invest in their trainees, it's a catastrophe. It's not a catastrophe, but it's a big deception if a trainee goes back home or just stops. Sometimes applicants, in fact, want to do something else. That's also a problem, especially in hospitality, you know, in cooking and so on. This is very much in demand, but sure, if you have an engineer who's done 2 master studies and who wants to do a traineeship as a cook, you're not quite sure if he's really going to stay in this job or if it's rather something to go to Germany and then try to find a job somewhere else. And of course, many employers are still reluctant because candidates from abroad bring with them many more administrative problems. You know, they have the established way of people already in Germany and so on, and they might have a higher dropout rate and so on. Okay, so this was the gold standard and the first problems, but of course It's also possible, the law definitely makes it possible that you come to Germany without a signed traineeship, and then you find it after 3 months, you find it once you are in Germany. But as far as I can see, the embassies and consulates are a little bit more hesitant. For a study abroad program, this is a typical way. You do a language course, and then you pass the language entrance exams, and then you study at a university of your choice. Has basically been our original business at IIK, but for these traineeships, it's still something the embassies are not that familiar with, and they have a tendency to be always very suspicious. Okay, it's also possible to have a level of less than B1. Then, for example, your employer must organize language course, or if you're an IT specialist, it doesn't matter. So it depends a little bit on the job and on the need also. And of course, it's possible to have a salary of less than 1,000 euros, but then you have to have a block bank account with a supplement to reach these 950 euros. Okay, what is kind of bigger problem when you're abroad is that some of the requirements of employers are difficult to fulfill when you're still staying in your home country. Sure, letter of motivation, certificates with English translation or German translation, German level, that's more or less standard, but there may be special aptitude tests or health exams have to be in Germany. The job interviews, some companies prefer to see the people personally and not only online. Some companies I talk to even prefer to have a short internship to get to know a candidate, how he behaves. For example, on a construction site, if he's a responsible person, this is something that's very difficult to show in a traditional job interview. And there may be very particular tests, for example, a security clearance if you work at a logistics center at an airport, or if you're a mechanic at the airport and so on. And this again is something you cannot do at home. So you see, it makes much more sense to be in Germany at least 2-3 months, and then try to find a traineeship just as a student could do and would do. And I think this is the future, and this is what's going to happen. But right now the chances of visa rejection might be higher if you have such a program. But I think the thing is you have to have a partner in Germany who has a good program, a serious program, so that the embassies see this is it's a curriculum, it's a pathway into traineeship. Okay, so of course there are remedies in having successful programs. As I said, some companies told me they're flooded by, what did they say? In one case, they're flooded by applications from Morocco, but they're just standard. They're sent to hundreds of companies. They just throw them away because for them it makes no sense. But if there's a good partner and a kind of pre-selection and someone who understands what's going on, I think that's quite good. And I also think there should be a certain intercultural training or adaptation period in Germany before the beginning of the traineeships. Maybe that's also important. The traineeships always start in August or September. Very few start in March, but normally that's 90% is in August or September. Okay, so basically, as I said, there are two models for these to get into these paid traineeships. The one is who's going to pay for what? What are the costs? Sure, I cannot put an exact price tag here, but sure, normally the student has to pay for the German language course at home, very much like he would have to do if he wants to study in Germany in a bachelor's or master's program taught in German. Then there is all this job placement and matching process with the employers. I think the future companies will pay for this, but right now they're not that willing to pay. Depends on the company, or it can be split. But I'm sure this is moving. This is changing. It's a question of need. As I said, hospitals, they pay enormous amounts of money to attract nurses and so on. And the same for the travel costs. In this program, we were implied in. It was a condition for the employers to pay also the flight, and they did, at least the the GIZ in this case, they did find employers who were willing to pay for the travel costs. Okay, what can be very big deception is that there is no guarantee, of course, that if you have a certain candidate, a client, that he will get a traineeship. He has to convince an employer. You can propose him to 2 or 3, 4 or 5 jobs. If you can well prepare him, you can work on the letter of motivation, but you can never guarantee that he will get a job. There's much less certainty than at the university, where it's more or less you have universities that accept everyone, and where you know the conditions. But here the candidate has to be convincing, otherwise he will not be taken. Okay. So the most likely present model as present is the one I said. You try to get the contract from your country, still in your country, you have the preparation, and then you go to Germany and so on. But the better model, and hopefully the one that's going to be the most frequent in the future, is that you do everything, that you do the first part of your preparation in your home country, and the second part you do in Germany, and that's where you get the traineeship, that's where you go to see the employers, that's where you can do all the tests and exams they need on top, or even do some kind of internship. So that's certainly much better. Of course, if it's not well prepared, the risk is high that you do not get a contract, and then after 3 months or something, your visa is finished and you have to go back home. But still, if it's well prepared, and if you have a partner or a company or any colleagues who know that you have the right qualification and the right language level, then probably the success rate will be very, very high. Okay, so I think that the chances are quite good that in 5 years' time the vocational trainee market in Germany will just be as established and maybe as big as a study abroad university market. And yeah, if you're interested in this, maybe you should give it a closer look. As I said, it's still developing, it's there are different models, it's going on, and I don't have public figures, but the number of contracts, trainee contracts, which are given to people who are still abroad is getting bigger and bigger. And at IIK we're also entitled to do these free courses for immigrants, and we do some courses for people who are already in this kind of vocational training. So that's also interesting, because even once you arrive in Germany, it's not enough to have the language level of B1. You need to be accompanied, you need to be supported, and with online you can do great things right now. You can do some kind of permanent language coaching, and if you have these courses are free, they're paid for by the German government, but only once you're in Germany. So if you can kind of integrate this into a program that starts at home with a partner and the first language course, and then goes on and continues until the end of the traineeship, then I think there's going to be a very good success rate, and this is going to be a very successful program. And once companies see this, I'm quite sure they will heavily invest in these programs. I'll stop here. I think, yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. If anyone wants the slide, you can pass your name card and we will send you the email later. Okay, thank you.